Hello, where have you been? I've been waiting for you. It gets lonely out here in YouTube world. Thanks for joining me. Today we're going to do a lesson comparing the home fronts of World War II with the home fronts of Iraq and Afghanistan today. So you should have in front of you the thing that is on your screen. It also looks remarkably like this. First thing, go ahead and put your name on it on this side if you haven't already. I'll wait for you to do so. All right, hurry up. You know how expensive it is to get time on YouTube? Very pricey. I don't have time for all this. Let's start going over this, and then I'll explain what we're doing with the other side. So on this side where it says youth during the war, I'll read to you. Well, you can see me reading. This is exciting. Here's a list of some of the things that young people did during World War II. Read each one and put a check mark next to the things that young people still do today. On the lines provided at the bottom of the page, make a list of other things that young people enjoy doing. So let's do this point by point before we go into detail. Do you go to the movies? Probably. Put a check mark. Do you see newsreels of the war in Iraq and Afghanistan? Probably not. You see them elsewhere, on CNN, on Twitter, on YouTube, things like that. Next, bought war bonds. Have you bought war bonds for the current war? I don't think so, so leave that blank. Have you had a slumber party? Maybe. They don't call them slumber parties anymore. They call them sleepovers. Next, have you saved tin cans? Maybe you have, but for a different reason. Have you met for dates at hamburger joints? Maybe you have. Perhaps you've gone to McDonald's, but now we have Chipotle. Collected tinfoil and rolled it into a ball. Interesting. Listened to the jukebox. Planted a victory garden. Drove jalopies. Jalopies are old cars. I hope you people aren't driving old cars. You're not old enough. Pulled down the shades at night so the enemy could not see the lights. Had pep rallies. Maybe you did, but they might be for something else. Learned the shapes of enemy and friendly planes. Knitted Argyle socks. Akil, I know you've knitted some Argyle socks. You can check it. Anybody else who hasn't? Please don't. Stuck pins in a map to show where the fighting was going on. Interesting. And listen to the radio. Take a moment to put a check mark next to the things that you've done. And then I want you to pause the video and write some other things below in the space down here that you enjoy doing. A bullet point is fine. I'll wait. I've got time. Jeez, I've got so much to do. Hurry up. I'm not yelling. Hurry. See, I'm being nice. Okay. Now that you've done the front part that says youth during the war and started to think about the things that you have done for the current wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and you've put some events down here, or things that you like to do in your life, it's now time to turn it on the back, like this. So what I want you to do is start to think about what is it that we have done in our world today compared to what they have done over here. But we'll come back to this in a couple of minutes. Let's start to look at some detail of some things that they did back then that we don't necessarily do today. First stop, rations. I have here my mom's ration book. Woo! And it says Ration Book, United States of America. And when we look at it, you see in some detail here some ration coupons. Now they're out of focus a little bit, but they show ration coupons, which we're going to look at in more detail in a moment. And it shows in here some detail. Now my mom was just a little kid, like literally little. You can barely see it here, but it says that she was 1 foot 6 inches tall and weighed 11 pounds. She was born right after World War II got started, or America got involved in World War II. I know it's hard to see it on here, so we'll look a little bit closer here. Here's a war ration book pointing some things out to you. If you did not follow the rations, which means use the coupons to be able to purchase things, I'll explain that, you could go to jail for up to 10 years, a $10,000 fine, or both. You could not transfer the book to a friend, although sometimes those things did happen. It is only supposed to be used by those who are issued. Now, since my mom was a little kid, her mom could use it, her dad could use it. You didn't have to like drag the baby with you, because that'd be child abuse. But they did have to prove that it was their child and so on. If you leave the United States, the book must be surrendered in accordance with the regulation. Any person finding lost book must deliver it to the nearest ration board. Now here's the coupons in a little bit of detail. When you look at the coupons, you see over here the different weapons of war. It wasn't that you could go and buy a grenade or a ship. This just reminded you of why you were rationing. Here's the things that you could buy. Sugar. Now, we needed sugar, of course, to make cakes and pies and sweets and things like that. They needed sugar as well to put in their coffee. So one of the reasons why we did this was to be able to save things to send over there. So you only were allowed to buy a certain amount of sugar. You might have to save up for a month in order to bake a pie. There are women and men who would save their sugar coupons for 2 or 3 months to get ready for a Thanksgiving feast. You didn't just plop sugar everywhere you went. You actually had to conserve it and be ready to be able to use it. Coffee, same thing. We needed our coffee over there. There wasn't enough to go around. There was a little bit that you could have. Flour. Spares were extras. So if you needed an extra, it's kind of like if you're playing, Scrabble, where there's a free space. You could use the spare as a free space. And you could use that if you didn't have enough coffee coupons. You could use one of your spares. One of the biggest things that was rationed was gasoline. Gasoline was needed for the war effort, so back at home you couldn't have as much gasoline as you wanted. You could only have a couple tank fills. You had to post this on the front of your car, as it says here, or mileage C. And mileage C was for these things. They're called essential activities. Official government or Red Cross business, you got more miles. School, traveling from school to school, you got more miles because school teachers are important. Transportation of 4 or more to school, so you had to carpool. Transportation of U.S. mail. And you can read the rest on here. Something you might not know is an embalmer. That is a person who takes care of a person who's died by filling them with fluids for the purpose of their funeral. So you learned something today. All sorts of different things, including telegram delivery, because telegrams were being delivered to those that had lost loved ones. These people actually got to use more fuel than the other people. Here's some examples of these things. Shoe stamp. You needed to have a ration coupon to get a shoe. You needed ration coupon to buy alcohol. There were messages throughout these of don't waste, don't burn it, save it. Waste paper is needed for defense. Don't forget. Rubber, obviously needed for the tires and for other things on vehicles. Tells you right here, we need almost 1 million tons. But we have unclaimed rubber, our priceless reserves in the cars. We need more. And it's telling you how we hope to fill it with synthetic, but we also need people to slow down. And people not to drive as much, because if you drive so much, you need new tires, and those are tires we can't use for the war. Here's another coupon for rubber footwear. Everything was restricted. People complained about it, and anytime somebody complained about it, someone else would say, don't you know that the war is on, and we need your efforts. Keep that in mind when you think about this. What sacrifices are we making today, or have we made as a family for this side over here? But wait, there's more. More roasted coffee credits. And fats. Really? You want to keep fats? Absolutely. The need is urgent. War in the Pacific has greatly reduced our supply of vegetable fats from the Far East. It's necessary to make substitutes for them. Fats make glycerin. Glycerin make explosives. We need those things. Don't throw away a single drop of used cooking fluid. Bacon grease. Bacon. Sorry. All of these different things were asked to be saved, and then you take them to your local meat dealer, which you don't really have anymore. Now they have something called Costco. And you go and you bring these things and they save the fats. They literally didn't want you to drain the fats away. Then there's propaganda. Take a look at this one. It's pretty brutal stuff. What are you going to do about it? And it talks about what the Japanese did on the March of Death, the Bataan Death March, which we still need to finish in class. Here's the message. Stay on the job until every single murdering Jap is wiped out. There were cartoons that also focused on this, some of them by Warner Brothers. Sometimes the propaganda was very serious and reminded us we need to keep our kids safe. We need to buy war bonds, and just like in World War I with the Liberty War bonds, now we have war bonds here as well. Then we have over here, United We Are Strong. Simple messages about the sides that are working together. Taiwan, America, Great Britain, and of course the Soviet Union. Then there's some funny ones. Remember, panzers are the German tanks. Let's catch them with his panzers down. We will if we keep firing. Just stay on target, stay on message, America. Then there's this one. Pretty simple. Loose lips sink ships. What does it mean? Talk about it in your groups. Oh wait, you don't have groups. Think about it. Okay, now raise your hand when you have an answer. Is your hand raised? Matthew, what's the answer? Nope. Other Matthew. No. Third Matthew. Good. It means that if people are talking, the other side's going to find out what's happening, and they're going to use that information to target our ships. Then there were victory gardens. We couldn't have all the food we wanted here, so people were encouraged to grow their own food, to grow their own milk if possible, if you have cows. Farmers were doing a lot of the work, but farmers couldn't do everything. Here's a message that said, women, farmers can't grow all your vegetables. Perhaps you need to grow some of these things yourself. You must grow your own. Farmers are growing more of the other essential crops, such as potatoes, corn for your bread, and food for the cows. It's up to you to provide these vegetables for your children. Do it for your children. Speaking of the children, these kids all participated in making victory gardens too. It was part of the war effort, and you felt like you were actually doing something to help. Now, this isn't to be taken literally. As cool as it would be to have a carrot bomb, they didn't exist yet. We all know that carrot bombs are important today. Something else that they did was keep track of the war by map. Today we have Google Earth. Today we have all sorts of tools, but we don't really use them, I don't think, to keep track of the war. Many of you probably couldn't even find Iraq on the map. In case you can't, here it is. This is what Iraq looks like. These pins represent people who served in Iraq and were now at a college, and all of them were at the same college, and they put where they were. Kind of like we did in class on Google Earth, except they didn't immigrate from Iraq, just where they served. They also did something kind of unusual. They would save tin and aluminum and roll it into huge balls, which they would bring down to get saved and would be sent over to be used by the war effort. We don't really do that today. Or do we? Is that Cole? Cole, is that you with a huge tin ball weighing 30 pounds? Interesting. Something else of interest was the air warden. These air wardens, guys like this, were in charge of, on the American cities, on the East Coast and West Coast primarily, ensuring that everything was blacked out. What I mean by that is we were afraid that planes would fly overhead bombing us like they had in London, like they had at Pearl Harbor. One way to help make sure that doesn't happen is to make everything dark. No street lights on. No movie theaters lit up. And houses had blackout curtains, like you see the girl right here, so that any light inside the house couldn't get outside. Because if it could, and a plane was flying overhead, they could look down and see pockets of lights where people might be, and they would then use that for bombing raids. Air raid precautions. This guy's been certified an air raid warden. Often they were older, too old to serve in the Army or in the armed forces, but certainly young enough so that they could participate and do this. They would go around at night, and they would tell you about the signals. Luckily this didn't happen too much in America, but there were scares about what it means that there are enemy planes in your direction. There's a certain blast you would listen for. A series of wavering blasts was that a bombing was imminent or expected. And a steady blast meant that the warning was coming to an end, perhaps. Or all clear is down here. If gas attack was suspected, this was used primarily in England, but they would whir this thing around and it would make noises that said that gas might have been used in the attack and they should put on gas masks. Fun times, huh? People actually trained to be plane spotters. They would look up in the sky, they would be trained to look for what the enemies looked like. The Germans had certain planes, the Japanese had certain planes. We trained people. Oops, you're out of order. We trained people, I thought I had a picture there, that's okay, to be able to look up in the sky and try to find the types of planes. The last thing is knitting argyle socks. Now I know that you guys like to knit argyle socks like this young lady here. I'm not even sure why they knit argyle socks, but they did. So, with all this information, you need to fill this part out, explaining what happened. All the things that I just mentioned in the home front during World War II, what are the things that they did that we don't do? What are the things that we've done for the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan over here that they didn't do? What is it that we have in common that we've done for both wars? There's a lesson in this, and I think that you guys will figure out what it is. But when you come back to class on Friday, this side should be filled out. And now this side, hello, should be filled out. In fact, I want you to start on this now. I can wait. Oh, I have something that I can do to entertain myself.